G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, on the land, on the sea, in the air.
In 1964, just 5 years after Barbie burst onto the scene, another doll took the world by storm. But this one packed a pistol and an M16.
When you get G.I. Joe and the authentic G.I. Joe equipment, you'll have the greatest realism, the greatest fun you ever had in playing soldier. Remember, only G.I. Joe is G.I. Joe.
The inspiration for this scar-faced soldier came to creator Don Levine from the window display of a New York City art supply store.
In the window, they had these movable wooden mannequins which artists used to pose and do their artwork. And it struck me, let me buy a dozen of these and take them home. Maybe we dress them up in military outfits. And that's how it all started. Up until that point, the only military figures they had were these die-cast and lead soldiers, which were always successful. I wanted to make sure that G.I. Joe could be posed. He could sit at the wheel of a Jeep. He could throw a grenade. He could walk. He could sit down. He could go into an airplane. He had to be movable. If he wasn't movable, we didn't have a concept.
Within a few short weeks, the basic 12-inch plastic male figure with 21 movable joints was complete. But one crucial element was missing.
We needed a name. And believe me, we struggled with different names. And we thought that at that time we should call him Ace the fighter pilot, Rocky the Marine, Salty the sailor. We did a lot of things. And one day, I'm watching a movie that comes on called The Story of G.I. Joe. And it starred a fellow named Robert Mitchum who played G.I. Joe. I looked at that and I said, oh my, this could be the name.
And with that, Don Levine's double-jointed doll was ready to do battle.
And lots of people said to us, you are crazy. No boy, no father, no mother will let a little boy play with this doll. So we automatically said, let's never call it a doll. Let's call it a movable action figure.
And while boys may not have yearned to play with dolls, they were eager to get their hands on a movable action figure.
This was a figure where the kid could sit there, you know, unsnap buttons and buckle belts and reach in and pull the canteen out. There was a lot of finger food that had always been for girls, and this was for boys, and nobody had ever done that before.
Because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and millions of dollars were at stake, G.I. Joe's creator wanted some special way to distinguish his movable action figure from the look-alike dolls that were sure to follow.
It was always my dream to copyright, patent, and trademark G.I. Joe. And they said, Mr. Levine, you cannot copyright and trademark the human body. We all own that. You can't own it as a toy company. But if there was something distinctive about G.I. Joe, if you could do that, perhaps that could protect you. I said, let's put a scar on his face. And that's how the G.I. Joe scar was born. A lot of people thought that Barbie might have scratched G.I. Joe. Not a true story.
In addition to Joe's obvious facial blemish, another one-of-a-kind but little-known defect was intentionally sculpted into the action figure's left hand.
If you have a chance to look closely at the thumb, you'll notice that the thumbnail is not on top, it's on the bottom. We did that specifically to show that if someone came in and copied the body exactly, we would know that they were infringing on our design.
For more than 4 years, G.I. Joe won nearly every battle he faced. But in 1969, Joe took it on the chin. Like his comrades in arms, those little green army men, Joe suffered from a backlash of anti-war sentiment. Joe's creators knew that for the action figure to weather the turbulent social climate of the late 60s, they would have to give Joe new marching orders.
Trouble is our business.
So we said, instead of strictly military, let's make G.I. Joe an adventurer.
Every set had a goal. You capture the gorilla, you kill the shark, you rescue the idol, you dig up the mummy's tombs. It's still very much action-oriented, but with a different goal than the 60s military stuff.
In recent years, thanks to a wave of nostalgia for the original Stoic Soldier, the 12-inch G.I. Joe has been recommissioned in a collector's edition series.
We've got adult men who keep telling me stories about G.I. Joe was such a big part of my childhood. And the reason why I have interest in G.I. Joe today is because it brings me back to those wonderful childhood memories.
The best part of the G.I. Joe was all the accessories that went with it. We had the talking G.I. Joe pulling the dog tags. We had the lifelike hair G.I. Joe.
You had like the army fatigue and the khaki stuff and the underwater stuff. It was just great. It was really, you never got tired of playing with it because there was so much of it.
You could get like 20 of them, and you could have a big adventure, and you know, when your parents like lock you in your room, you know, you're stuck there in the middle of New Jersey, but you could go anywhere with G.I. Joe.
Of course, they're all trash now, and we could be very wealthy if we had them all.
There's an old saying that soldiers never die, moms just throw them away. We give a lot of mothers around the country a chance to come back and say, I'm sorry I threw your G.I. Joe away 30 years ago. Here it is again, have some fun with it.
Remember, only G.I. Joe is G.I. Joe.